Hello there. My name's Daniel Pace, and I'd like to play a game today. It's a game about headlines. So this is how we play. I'll read a headline, and then you get to decide whether or not there's any truth to it, or if it's just a desperate attempt to get clicks. Let's begin. So I open up Google News and bombard it with a ton of headlines. One that I would like to park on is from NBC. Trump pretended that Congress hadn't just demolished his wall. Analysis: lawmakers refused to authorize funding to pay for president's big campaign promise. Then he took the stage in El Paso. This is referring to the Trump rally that happened yesterday. This was posted at 4:25 a.m. today. The article would have you believe that Congress did not agree to fund any of the wall at all. The article is from NBC. It's pretty snarky and smug in its delivery, but, that's okay. I guess whatever it takes, right? I suppose. So the article goes on to say that basically a bipartisan group of House and Senate negotiators, no doubt aware that Trump was about to speak, sent word Monday evening that they had struck a deal to avoid a shutdown and keep the Homeland Security Department and other federal agencies open past Friday. Democrats had quickly dropped a demand to cap the number of undocumented immigrants that federal authorities could detain at length that had been hanging up the talks, and Republicans had agreed to limit the new border fencing to 55 miles. In other words, no wall. Well, that's interesting, because another article from the new from Fox News reads, lawmakers reach agreement in principle in border security talks with $1.3 billion for barrier. Fence, barrier. Well, this is interesting. Congressional negotiators revealed Monday evening that they've reached an agreement in principle on border security funding that includes more than $1.3 billion for a physical barrier along the U.S.-Mexico border. So NBC and Fox seem to be saying different things. How about the Washington Post? With shutdown looming, border deal is reached in principle. This in principle thing seems to be coming up a lot. Washington Post reports, beyond the border barriers, the agreement, which primarily funds the Department of Homeland Security, would provide $1.7 billion more. Whoa, 1.7? Well, this is interesting. $1.7 billion more for border security, including technology at ports of entry, more officers, and humanitarian aid. So NBC says no wall. Fox says $1.3 billion. Washington Post says $1.7 billion. This is all very strange. So the entire $5 billion that Trump wanted for the wall was not agreed to. But I think the important thing is that agreements were actually made on this detainee thing and on the border security thing. So Congress has until Friday to pass this legislation to push this all through to avoid another government shutdown. What's interesting, though, is that these articles, are cramming in like a secondary story that I kind of think it deserves its own story. Like, Democrats wanted to limit funding for detention beds, while Republicans wanted to increase funding for these detention beds. Eventually, a compromise was met and has kept the funding basically right at its current state and position. For about 40,000 detention beds. What's interesting is that, that's not even in the headlines. Democrats want to decrease the amount of beds these detention centers get funded for, which would indicate that the people that are coming over, the immigrants coming over that are not documented, would be released into society to await their court date to get, properly vetted and brought into the United States, which is interesting. Why would you want them among the civilian population waiting for a court date when all sorts of things could realistically happen? And how do we not know that they're criminals? We don't not know. Is it better, this is just an objective question, is it better to let them integrate into society while awaiting a court date without any really good way to track them down at their court date? Or is it better to keep them in a single spot where we know where they are and care for them in the best way we possibly can? I don't know if there's a moral or ethical thing there. Just logically, it makes more sense to keep all the immigrants that we can in one spot to help them do things properly and to keep them safe, to make sure that the children and the parents are related, there's no human trafficking going on, all that kind of stuff, because there's a pretty complicated issue. But none of that was in the headlines. That wasn't important, really, I guess. So what is in the headlines is the fact that Trump held a rally yesterday that's all over the headlines, but it was a pretty big deal, I guess. Trump did mention in his rally that a wall would be built on the Rio Grande, I don't know how you pronounce it, the big river. Now, it's interesting because it's not really clear what border barrier means. I think a lot of people would agree, though, that barrier and wall is pretty interchangeable, but I don't know. It's pretty vague there. But what's interesting is that the details of this legislation, has not even been released to the public yet. So there's a lot of stuff that people are reporting on that we don't actually know for certain and cannot be verified. So take that as you will. Anyway, let's move on to something else that caught my eye this morning. Insects are dying en masse, risking catastrophic collapse of Earth's ecosystems. The insect apocalypse is indeed upon us, according to the first global scientific review of insect population decline. Wow. Another one of the same story. Insects are dying off at record rates. An ominous sign we're in the middle of the 6th mass extinction. That sounds terrifying. This first headline is from Huffington Post, who, did lay off 15% of its staff recently, but, it wasn't their fault. They're blaming Verizon, who is seeing a decline in profits and then was, cutting back on Yahoo and all that. That doesn't explain the nearly 1,000 journalists that have been laid off that have nothing to do with Verizon and Huffington Post, but I guess that's not really important. That's not what we're here to talk about. So this one is actually mostly true. After doing some digging, following the data from these review studies, this review study abstract, which is interesting here. It's a review study, meaning it's not a research study. This isn't new information. This is reviewing about 73 other studies that have already been done on this topic. And then this is an abstract of that study, as in the study itself has not been published yet, as it will be set to be published in this journal being cited in April of this year. However, it is still citable, so there's no foul play on that one. Data suggests that about 40% of the world's insects are threatened with extinction, according to the abstract. I don't really know what that means. That's actually pretty vague, because there's a difference between endangered, which is if it's endangered, it's a serious threat of extinction. Then there's threatened. Threatened means it's not quite endangered, it's threatened with becoming endangered. So when you say threatened with extinction, do you mean endangered or do you mean threatened? Because for a scientific journal, I think you should be more clear about this. So moths, butterflies, ants, wasps, and dung beetles, of all things, are the ones probably affected the most by this extinction pattern, this decline in population. 2.5% of the overall population per year since the 80s or so, when these studies started being done, which, is a significant amount. The study suggests also that aquatic insects have suffered significant losses as well, though it is very difficult to study marine insects and entomology and all marine life in general, so take that as you will. The study finds that it's the conversion of the land for the use of intensive agriculture that is the leading culprits to this. It's driving this huge loss of insect life. Also, agrochemical pollutants, invasive species, and the always vague climate change are also contributing factors. A study in 2017 used the word 6th mass extinction, so we're pretty sure it's caused by humans. Of course, all the other mass extinctions that have happened were not, but, who knows? Who really knows? My issue, however, with this headline is the risking catastrophic collapse of Earth's ecosystem. The study hasn't even been published yet, so what are they talking about? That's not even in the abstract. Well, they're quoting an article from The Guardian. So apparently The Guardian talked to one of the co-authors of this review study, and this author used the word catastrophic. He also mentioned that, and part of the abstract says that insects are vital to the ecosystem of the entire planet. Just true. So Huffington Post sort of just took all of this, ran with it, and just basically said, we're at risk of demolishing the entire planet. Which, yeah, if all the insects are going to, die tomorrow, we'd all die. Yeah, it's probably true. If you take the numbers, though, 2.5% of all the insects per year, as long as nothing changes, then yeah, by 2119, all the insects would be dead. Literally 100 years from now. Which, I don't know, are we really not going to be able to do anything about this within the next 100 years? Who knows? The Business Insider ran those numbers and reported that the current rate would be 2,119, the year 2119, when all the insects go extinct. I can't verify that, because I don't know how many insects there are in the world, but Huffington Post's headline would pretty much lead you to believe that, oh my gosh, the Earth's about to end. Which, I don't think so. We have 100 years to try and figure something out. And by all means, let's figure something out. Let's do something about all of this. It's interesting because in this new Green Deal thing, we were talking about getting rid of, like, cattle and stuff. Almost like it's worse for cattle to be used, but it's the insecticides and the use of the heavy, like, industrial agriculture for, like, food. Like, insecticides aren't used on cattle, they're used on plants. So, should we all be vegan? Well, wouldn't that, we just all ate plants, or we just all became vegetarian, wouldn't that just, like, increase the need for more farmland? Well, we don't want insects, so we keep, keeping the pests off the food so we can actually eat it, but then the insecticides are killing the bugs, but then the bugs pollinate the food. This is really all confusing, isn't it? So what should we do? Should we get rid of plants and, so we should stop farming? So we should get rid of all the animals? What are we supposed to do here, people? This has just been a quick look at today's headlines. If you found this helpful or informative or even the least bit entertaining, please consider dropping a like, dropping a comment, sharing this video. This is a new show called Truth or Clickbait. Alternatively, you could call it Why Do You Have to Lie About It? I hope this brings a little bit of clarity and outside perspective on the mainstream media's Anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll see me tomorrow. Peace out.